Howdy, pals. Welcome back to another episode of the Pool Box Pals podcast. I am one of your hosts. My name is Monk, but you can call me Monk. That's fine. Just stick with that. And with me, we got a special guest because Mark is still taking some time off, and you can call him Mad.
Don't call
Our
me
special,
mad.
not you. I'm screwing this all up by trying to make silly jokes, and that's how I do. But Ross is back with us for another this isn't a story time with Ross since we're going to be
No,
talking about
this is
many comics.
definitely not story time.
But man, I was racking my brain when we were talking earlier. Just peek behind the curtain. You came in super last minute to do this, and that's why we're recording ahead of time. We're not doing it live this week, just so that that would work out a little bit better. But anyways, I was really trying to rack my brain at like some comics that we have both read that I like know that we haven't gotten a chance to talk about, and my brain just instantly just went to the Fourth Man, which I'm pretty sure we've talked about almost every time that we've talked.
I
But I
feel like
just,
every time.
yeah, I just can't get over how good that comic is.
Well, yeah, dude, and thanks for having me on, man.
Oh,
I
no
really
problem.
appreciate coming back, and yeah, man, it's me, it's Ross, Red Optical Corp. That's who I am, and I am happy to talk about the Fourth Man for the fourth time with the man
Yeah,
Monk.
I mean, it probably would. Just can never get over how much I would love that to be a movie, which kind of seems like insulting to say to a comic book sometimes, like to say that you would like to see it in another medium. Because I say that about like Petrolhead a lot, that I would love to see that as like a Pixar movie,
Oh
something
yeah,
like
no, I
a
mean, I don't
dream.
even think Petrolhead needs to be a Pixar movie. Petrolhead just could be a movie. Petrolhead's awesome.
Well, what I mean is like in that like kind of styling. So when I see that world in my head, it moves. Maybe not a pixel, just like an animated movie where everything is kind of like lively and like chunky and like I don't know. The art does such a good job in that comic of just bringing it to life and
What was
making
that
it.
movie? The movie with the robots. Oh god, what was that?
Oh, I think it's just called Robots.
No, 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 and I'm not. Yeah, exactly, robots. No, it wasn't an animated movie. What was that movie where it was like the junkyard robots?
Yeah, I
I don't
think it's
know.
just called Robots.
No, it wasn't robots. But you know what? And I hate to say it, it felt Canadian, but I don't even know why. I don't even know why I'm thinking that.
Do you
But
remember
yeah,
any of the cast?
no, I just remember it was like this giant robot that walked around, and there was other people. Man, I'm just like losing it here.
Well, it's okay. I just
That's
Googled
that's
robots and
no, what was the name of that movie? And it was, like, really popular. God,
I think it might be Robots.
no, it came out, like, 20 years ago, and I'm sure someone's gonna comment.
It
It
came
was
out in 2025. That's almost 20 years ago.
2025 is next year.
I'm sorry, 2005.
'Cause I was gonna say, "Wait a second, are you reading the future? Have you
Yeah,
been
I
reading some
am. I'm
comic
like,
books?"
that this robot movie that's coming out next year.
Did you
Who
see the
knows?
thing wait, did you see the thing with the Apple glasses? A side point, that The Simpsons predicted that too?
No, I didn't see
Oh
that.
my god, if you go anybody who's listening to this, go Google The Simpsons Apple glasses, and then go Google the new Apple Vision glasses, and you'll see that Matt Groening literally was, like, a few years later, and it's, like, people walking into walls, a lady walking and falling into a sewer.
Oh
It's,
my
like, the
gosh.
funniest thing, and
Yeah,
that's
I
all I'm
did.
thinking of. You just said 2025, I'm like, "So he must know of a robots movie that I don't know of yet."
I mean, I'd be very willing to place money that there will be a robots-based movie in 2025 because I feel like there's been a robot-based movie every year since 2005.
I will remember the name of this movie, and I will take after this because I don't know why I can't even think of even close to the name of the movie, but it reminds me but the aesthetic of it reminds me of what I could see Petrolhead being in live action and not just animated.
I'm telling you, man, I think you're thinking of robots. I'm gonna pull it up real quick. This is how we're gonna figure this out. Oh, wait, hold on. There we go. Okay. Is it this stuff?
No, because it's not animated.
Oh, it's like a live action
It's that's what
thing?
I said, it's a live action
Oh, right.
robots. God, I can't even remember the name of it. What was it called?
Wait, I'll type in live action robot movie. Uh was it the one where Robin Williams becomes a human?
No, wasn't that the toy with Richard Pryor?
No, no, man, we shouldn't do a movie podcast. Let's stick solely to comics because we're just not our wavelengths are
Not
not
as good.
all these movies. Wally? I just typed in live robots movies, and that's not a live robot
Oh
movie.
man, I'm dying laughing. I'm
There is a
crying.
movie just called Robot. It was or
No,
no, Robot
I,
Jocks.
th- I don't even want. I'm like laughing like I don't even want to say, but I think it begins with an A. That's the worst
Oh my
description
gosh.
ever.
That is it Ex Machina?
No, because that begins with an E, not an A.
So I mean, so you're dedicated to it's about robots in live action. The movie starts with an A.
It probably.
All right.
Anyway, I
I'm
think we should get
typing
off this
all of
topic
this up.
because otherwise this is going to be one of those 20-minute podcasts where we talk about the movie that Ross can't remember.
Yeah. Anyway, wow. All right. I somehow opened up Audacity. I'm gonna start recording a whole other different thing. It's because I typed in A. All right. So let's get recentered back on comic books.
Good.
Um Actually, you know what? This is a good segue because we're gonna be showing off, or at least I'm gonna be showing off my pools from this past Wednesday, which if you're watching this the day that this comes out, which is one full Wednesday ago. So if you want to see what our current pools are, head over to our Instagrams. We'll be posting those sometimes this week. But I did pick up Petrolhead #4, and
Nice.
I haven't gotten to dive into it yet. But another #4 that I picked up this week that I did get to dive into was Zawa and the Belly of the Beast, which I can't remember. Were we talking about this on the podcast or before the podcast?
Before the podcast.
Okay, because
Yes,
so
I think
much
we're
just
the only two
happened in the
people reading
last.
it.
Wait, what?
I think we're the only two people I know reading it.
Yeah, which is a shame because it's so good.
It's so you know what it reminds me? It's so Seussian, like Dr. Seuss with the way he would
Mm,
tell tales, like where it's like you have like a like the Lorax,
hmm.
like kind of like, yeah, you keep chopping down these trees, you're gonna run out of trees. Like that's what this reminds me of. It's like you keep, itching at the belly of the beast, and the beast is gonna come back at you. But keep sorry, I'm interrupting your weekly polls.
No, that's okay. I would like you said, since we're the only ones reading this, I'd love to actually talk to you a little bit about it. Um, so I'm sure that I've talked about this on the podcast before, but the premise is that there's kind of this little town on an island, and they have like this mountain guardian that they call is kind of like a urban legend or like a local folklore, something like that. And there's this family that is kind of the main focal point, and they're kind of chefs or pastry makers, those kind of things. There's like one friend a part of the group, and their dad had passed away, and it kind of picks up post this, so uh they're working in this small town, and it's run by this mayor who's like clearly like the most corrupt looking like character, like just and I think that's one of my favorite things about this comic is how like it is kind of trope heavy, but it isn't all of it is good. Like I'm not seeing like a lot of like new or innovative thoughts in this. I just feel like it's a pretty classic like teen story or a young
Well, it's
adult story.
Boombox. It's
Mhm.
Boombox. Boombox is Boom's, like, teenage audience, like, spinoff, like, that's the whole point, like, Boom is Boom, and Boom is awesome. I mean, I
Mhm.
read a ton of Boom, I know you do too, but Boombox is meant for that teenage audience, but I also feel like, I can't remember there was another Boombox book I read, like, a couple years ago or 2 years ago that I thought was really good, but this is like, it reminds me of that, we're trying to teach kids a lesson,
Mhm.
but we also want to have a good comic book come out. And like you said, it's a family on an island, and that's kind of what you know. And this group of kids, one of which is the son of the dad, uh, is trying to find out, where does dad go? How does dad die? What happened here? And it takes you through this whole like mystery of this beast of the island, and you're kind of like, whoa, like, is this beast real? Can they solve this? Kind of like Goonies esque.
Mm,
It's like if you took Goonies and you mixed it with the Lorax, and you're supposed to be taught a lesson about what not to do, like don't don't hollow out the belly of the beast. The beast will come after you.
yeah.
But also, like, is this? folklore really true? And maybe it is, but maybe it hasn't been told in the way that you know, like the One-Eyed Willie story.
Right. Yeah, I just gotta say, I really feel like the art does such a fantastic job of, uh, it's so there's like this, like I said, there's this guardian figure, and we've learned in like the latest issue. Have you read it? Did you read number
Yeah,
4?
yeah, yeah, it
So
was awesome.
it was. She's like this kind of like this creature that the island keeps producing to like balance it out, or essentially be kind of like the embodiment or the incarnation of the mountain itself, you know? And so it shows we kind of get this history of the relationship between this Zawa, which is the titular character, um, and man and mankind as it comes to humankind as it comes to this island, and tries to start taking advantage of it, and just seeing you know how they've constantly tricked this thing into being by giving it sweets and keeping it docile, and all that, those kind of things, which is its own kind of social commentary in a way, of just give them bread and circus and they'll never revolt. um
Right.
Right. So, yeah, and just again going back to the art is when there's multiple times where the Zawa figure like realizes her purpose or starts to like actually contribute back to the mountain to like beautify it, and I feel like the art just really like is at its
Oh,
peak
yeah,
in those
it's
moments.
awesome. When they feed the Zawa and the Zawa, like, basically throws up, like, an apple tree.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just
Yeah.
like, "Ooh, we" like, as if, like, they've been deprived or depraved of a lot of this stuff because the mayor is trying to control it, and the mom of the kid is like, "Well, this beast really just wants to destroy the island," and no, the beast just wants to preserve the island. The beast is not like, the beast doesn't want you to like, the island itself doesn't want you, the person, to develop. They want you to live off the island, and they're willing to provide you food, they're willing to provide you water, they're willing to provide you shelter, just don't destroy it. And as humans, what do? We come in, we create homes, we create these factories, we create these things that the island is just like that's upsetting to the island. It's like basically they're saying you should be living naturally. You shouldn't be living in like this industrial commercial world.
Mm,
And because you keep industrializing, and the mayor is like basically like, you just keep killing the Zawa. As long as you keep killing it, you'll be able to control the island. But now that you've released it to the world, it's now going to be able to take over. Well, duh. Well, don't kill the Zawa. Just live off of it. I mean, come on, man.
yeah.
If some thing started pooping and farting apples, I'd be like, yeah, this is great, greatest thing ever, free apples.
Right. And that's I know it just goes back to the thing of like the yeah, it's just this malicious kind of like oppression of nature wants to work with you, but it's not, for some reason that isn't good enough. We want to oppress it. We have
Right.
that wicked sense about us. But yeah, I mean, issue number 5 comes out next month, and I felt like the issue number 3, I felt like the gap between 3 and 4 was really short. Um but yeah, I'm super looking forward to it. I just love like it's just a good comic. Like it's
Yep.
good, solid, like just I yeah, like no
Might not be the
complaints.
best, might not be your like in your top 5, but you
Mhm.
wanna know what? It's definitely not one of those books where you're just like, "I'm just trying to get through it to finish it."
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I look for like, and that's
Right.
it. This is always like my like standard of how much I'm enjoying it. Do I look forward to it when it gets plopped on the shelf at the comic shop?
Yeah, so tell me, what else did you pick up?
I will do that by
I want
answering.
I wanna hear what else did you get this week?
I got Beware the Planet of the Apes number 1, because there is that new, whatever it's called, Dawn of the Kingdom of
Oh
the
god, I
Rise
saw that
of the
commercial during the Super Bowl. I had no
right.
idea that they were making another Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, and, I mean, this isn't my thought, this is like a I got this off of another podcast, but, um it's interesting to be like they're like, "Look, we're the new, like, apex predators of this world," but it's like, you're just using all the old things that we made for different things. You're not making a steel ship, you're not going out and doing you're just using old guns, you're not making your own monkey guns, you know? But anyways, that, I also recently watched the original Planet of the Apes, which is bonkers for, like, a million reasons. So I'm curious to see where this is because it's definitely set, like, in the original Planet of the Apes universe because they all kind of look like, that kind of monkey.
Oh, yeah, that's crazy.
So
I had no idea what the art is literally it looks like they're in those costumes from the
right.
original.
Yeah, and it which is interesting because it also is kind of, like, devoid of a lot of, like, detail and emotion like those kind of masks were, but those masks would have been, like, way ahead of their time for the
Mhm.
time, but I
Well,
just said time twice.
yeah, well, you know what's funny when the original when the trailer came out during the Super Bowl, do you know what the first thing I thought of?
No.
Spaceballs.
Why is that?
Because at the end of the Spaceballs movie, they land on the Planet of the Apes. Do you remember that?
No, I
At the
haven't seen
very
Spaceballs probably
Oh
since I
god.
was
So
8 years old.
at the end when the Mega Maid explodes, it goes to the planet it like the Mel Brooks ends up on the planet of the Spaceball I mean, the Planet of the Apes,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Oh, boop. Spaceballs, there goes the planet."
That's funny.
And it's the head of the Statue of Liberty with the torch, and just like the end of the first Spaceballs movie, but, I mean, the end of the first Planet of the Apes movie. So I was
Yeah,
like, "Wait a second, is Mel Brooks coming out with another Spaceballs movie that I didn't know about?"
that's funny.
And
It
then I'm
wouldn't
like,
that be something?
"No,
He's
no,
just
yeah,
you get
this
to
is
the end
just."
of the trailer, and it's the big reveal of Spaceballs 2.
I would have loved that. I'm like, "Nope, it's just another Planet of the Apes movie." Sorry,
Spaceballs
the.
Yeah. Spaceballs is definitely one of those movies that I see, like, fake, flyers or
All the
fake
time.
movie posters for on Facebook, and it's like, "Coming July 2025," or whatever, and it's just like, who and it's like somebody sharing it, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, I'm so excited," and it's
Well,
like,
that's
"This
why I
isn't
keep seeing
happening."
those things, and that's why I'm like, Planet of the Apes. Every time I see a Planet of the Apes trailer, I think because that's how Spaceballs ended, that we're getting another Spaceballs.
That's funny. I mean, similar to, Zawa and the Belly of the Beast, I will say that those movies are all, like, silent killers. Like, they're all just very successful
Yep.
movies that, like,
Mhm.
no one really goes, goes crazy for, but they all do, like
No one goes
they're all
ape.
Oh, okay. Well, you said the best thing you could have, so I'm gonna keep going. Uh, Next is The Deviant. I think this is number 4 as well? Yeah. Have you been reading this?
No, and you wanna know what? I've been actually watching you talk about this, thinking like, I initially when you read a lot of books, it's very hard to pick up everything, and I remember
Mhm,
when it came out, and I thought it was like, "That looks cool," but you know what? I'm like, I'm gonna just pass on it because I'll see how everybody likes it, and then if I end up picking it up in trade, just like I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but when you guys were talking about Layla Starr, like, I haven't read that yet,
mhm.
but I bought the trade of it, so I have 0 problem picking up trades in issues where it turns out that the book was much better than I thought. Like, I did that with Local Man too.
Mhm. Yeah, see, I do believe that there are just some books that are better in trades, because I think some I know for me, again, we kind of just alluded to this that there's some comics that like you're just reading to get through, and like because issue number 1 and 2 were really good. So I just think trades are like perfect little, I
Or
like
you
it.
Sorry, or like, when you read a trade and, like, you just said, like, if you read a trade, like, I know you've talked about this because I've talked about this. What's the furthest place from here? I'm sorry, just, like, to cut you off and go completely off topic, but
Hmm,
if you just decided, like, "You know what? I wanna catch up. I wanna read the first trade." If you read that first trade straight through, you might be more inclined to pick it up than had you had picked it up book to book to book to book. Because
yeah.
if you read all first 7 of those books, it flowed because it just flows. So,
Mhm.
anyway, sorry. Didn't mean to cut you off, man.
No, it's all good. And then the last thing that I got this week is Transformers number 5, I think. Yeah. So this I didn't know was ongoing. I got my guy at the comic shop to put that on the pool list for me. So I'm on that. I've been loving that.
Nice, man. I, picked up issue 1, and again, it was one of those issues when I picked it up, I thought it was good, but again, I was like, I have so many books that I'm reading. I think I have a I went to my pull box. I have 103 subscriptions right now,
Oh my
but I
gosh.
think probably 30 of them have ended. But you wanna know what? It was like when I thought Alice Ever After was gonna end, but then it became Alice Never After, and
Mm,
Chicken Devil became Chicken Devils.
and it
So it's
never
like
finished coming out.
so some of these just never end.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean, I have this little shelf back here that's like for all my like currently readings and like it's amazing how much like cuz we also read indie comics and indie comics don't always come out month after month. Sometimes there's a 3, 4 or just a year long gap in between, you know?
What's the book you're reading? What's that
Rad
book you
Wraith.
Yes, I
Yeah.
started that too.
Yeah, apparently issue 3 and 4 came out or something. It was just too hard
No
for me to
idea.
follow. My shop didn't get it, so, like, I think I'm just gonna wait until it's all I know for a fact that it's all done and then get it all because it's just been playing with
Happened with
my
me
heart.
with Duel.
Okay, I don't
Duel
remember Duel.
Yeah, Duel was you know, like a world where you could go online and you could challenge someone to a duel,
Mhm.
like an actual physical duel, and, like, there was a kid who was really good
Like,
at
you
it,
would
and
meet up in real life and
you'd
duel?
meet up in real life and you'd, like, meet up but, like, you would have, like, code names so the police couldn't catch you, and
Yeah.
because you were, like, signing a waiver through this website, like,
Mhm.
the death wasn't, like, a murder, but, like,
Interesting.
people would pay for it, and, like, the winner of the duel would get the money based on, like, some of the wagers. It was, like, a crazy cool concept,
That is a pretty cool concept.
but they only made, like, 3 issues. It was supposed to be, like, an ongoing thing or something like that, and it was, like, 2 years ago, the last issue, and it's by, like, some random press, and I'm like, "Where is issue 4?" Like, I wanna know what happened. They were just at an old folks home.
Oh, man, that's a bummer because you know that there's some guys out there, you know, or girls, whatever, there's some people out there that are, like, worked really hard on that, and then who knows why it all
It was
didn't come
cool.
out.
It was good artwork. I can't remember who makes it. Didn't start
Comics
with
are
an
s
A.
comics good. We're gonna go down this rabbit hole again. Comics are so interesting because I feel like there's not a lot of other mediums that are so, like, movies and TV shows may be the closest things where it's like you can change, you know, because there are some, like,
Yeah.
uh there are some TV shows that are still filming a season while, like, the beginning of it is coming out. Not so much anymore since everything's kind of a lot shorter and more like bam, pow, coming out real quick. Um, but there used to be a time where people could like change, you know, how things were ending or whatever on the fly because they were seeing that people weren't liking where it was going. And I think comics can do that a little bit, but there's so much risk involved in trying to do a 6 issue comic of like, I hope that there's enough, like, I hope people like, there's going to be a gap between 4 and 5 that's longer than all the other issues. I hope people like number 4 so they're willing to stay on, you know, like all that kind of weird pressure that you don't get with like a lot of other mediums.
Especially with some of these independent books where they don't have the money. Like,
Mhm.
that's what happened with, again, this is what I think happened with Red 5 with Fallen, which I loved last year, but the problem was is issue 2, I think, like, had an issue where they all were ruined.
Oh, geez.
So they had to repress all of them. They had to, like,
Mhm.
redo it, but they have no money. Like, Red 5 is like I mean, what has Red 5 made that you know, like, aside from Fall like, I mean, I read
Right.
Lead City, I read, um, God, the movie where they're running away from the sun, the book where they're running away from the sun, which was kinda cool, but they Red 5 has done some books that I like, but again, they were a little pressed. Could you imagine if, like, all of a sudden you lost, like, $20,000
Yep.
worth of comics, and now you have to create $20,000 worth of inventory out of nothing? Because it wasn't as if the stores are willing to pay 20,000 more. They just have to you just have to eat that cost.
Right.
So that's why it took me so long to get to that. So I wonder if this pressing, who made this is just like, "We just don't have the funding," like, and they're not gonna pull an Aftershock where they're just like, "We'll just make it and then we'll just won't pay anybody."
Ugh. Well, yeah, that's a whole other thing, but
Which is like, I mean, I don't know if that's what happened, but I feel like that's kind of what happened.
right. Well, hey, man, do you wanna quickly run through, what you pulled this week?
Yeah,
Whether you're showing that off or just listing it off?
I pulled a lot this week. Let me see if I've got what I got here. I got some of what I have to the side of me. Okay, let me show you what I got. Okay,
I'll
so
take it.
let's see what I got. I got Zawa,
Nice.
which I definitely, we just talked about. I got Masterpiece.
Okay, I heard you talk. I heard
So
the guys on the comic book lair talking about that.
because I told Kyle to read it, and it's
Yeah.
awesome. It is literally like Ocean's 11, like the way that it goes. By the way, I Hate Fairyland 11, which is still out, which is still awesome. In this issue, they reference Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce,
Well, that's impressive. Speaking
and
of
it's
being able to edit stuff
because
on the fly.
well, that's exactly why I was saying because you were saying like, edit things on the fly, and Scotty Young is from Kansas City, and he likes the Chiefs, so it's literally like it's just it's a fart joke waiting to happen in this whole thing.
Or maybe it feeds into that conspiracy theory that the NFL is rigged and that somehow he's got an inside
That he
scoop
knew
into
ahead of
the
time.
he knew ahead of time. Wow.
I don't know if any of this is from this week, but I read Thanos 3, Fantastic Four 17, which was really cool. It was a time travel issue. Kill Your Darlings 6, which is just getting way out of control.
Oh, I did pick that up, I think. I
And
don't know why that
Moon
wasn't
Knight
in
Moon
my
Knight 2.
where
And
did
then
that go? I
then
swear to God, I picked that up this week.
I also read, The Oddly Pedestrian Life of Christopher Chaos. I read Petrolhead 4, The Oddly Pedestrian Life of Christopher Chaos. I thought you were reading that.
No, nope, that's mad.
It's mad reading that.
Yeah.
This week, this issue is the first of a two-part. My brain is
And
just
I do
like,
it all the time.
um, this issue was a two-parter of how Adam Frankenstein came to be, how he was created by Victor Frankenstein, like 100 years ago. So it's like in the oddly pedestrian life of Christopher Chaos, you find out like Christopher Chaos and his band of like high school like people like there's like a werewolf and a this and that they run into a Adam, and you don't know who Adam is, and it's kind of like, who is Adam? Is Adam? It's Adam Frankenstein, but like, where did he come from? Why is he in this church this whole time? And this issue is the first part of part one of part two of how he was created by the original Victor Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenstein, like,
Mm,
that Adam Frankenstein is Frankenstein's monster, like, which is really what it is. Everyone thinks like Frankenstein is the monster. No, it's Frankenstein's monster. Like, it's
right,
just like he's creating like basically his son, but it's his monster. So
right. Well,
anyway,
there's a lot of
pretty
people
cool.
who's created sons who are their monsters, I would
Yes,
imagine.
listen, my son looks exactly like me, and sometimes he can be a monster, so you never know.
Oh, that's funny. Well, hey, why don't we dive into one that I feel I actually, I, yeah, I'm pretty sure I know that you read this, but I'm excited to talk about this one with you.
Oh,
The One Hand from
yes,
Rom V. I feel
yes.
like a lot of the stuff that we're going to be talking about is very detective-y this week, or kind of like,
I love detective stuff. That's why. Well,
hmm
maybe not. That's not why we're talking about it, but I love it.
yeah. I mean, same here. I don't know what about it other than, like, just the mystery and the intrigue, is something that gets
Did you
me?
know Did you know the tie-in book?
No.
Ooh, this is gonna be good.
Oh,
Okay, so
do tell.
yeah, yeah,
I'm
ooh.
excited.
Dun, 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 dun. Like when you did that thing where you had the when you were doing
Mhm.
that thing a few weeks.
Right.
Anyway, so the one hand is Ram V telling the story from the side of the detective. Next week, or probably when this airs, is going to be the issue of the Six Fingers. That is telling it from the story of the killer.
That's super interesting, and is
So that I
who's
know
writing that?
Ram V.
That's great.
So he's writing two separate books that are going to coincide, that you have to read issue one of one and issue one of one, and then issue two, and then issue two, and then issue three, and issue three. And
I
you're
like
hearing
that.
it from both sides of the story. Could you imagine if like if you're watching a movie and you're following this detective, but then you're also following the serial killer and you're getting his perspective?
But not
And
even that, you have to, like, go to a different show to watch it.
right.
Like, the episodes are coming out.
But
That's
you
really
don't
cool.
know, like, I mean, maybe the serial killer isn't as bad as you think, maybe this detective thing, but I think that's cool. So, yeah, definitely
Yeah.
before you pick up issue 2 of this, pick up issue 1 of that, and if you're gonna pick up issue 1 because you hear about this, anybody listening or watching or whatever, the Six Figure Man, or I think it's the Six Figure Man or something like that, that's you gotta pick up this issue first.
I
This
wonder
the
if
one
you
in.
I wonder if you'll be able to read, like, the One Hand, if you read that through, if it works, or if you have to do the other one,
I think you probably can read each individually,
Mhm.
but if you just want from one perspective, but I wanna see, like, the bouncing.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Mm,
mean, me too. But I just that's a very cool concept to me.
right?
Why don't you, since it's, it's not an official story time with Ross, why don't you tell us what the, story is of the One Hand?
Well, the one hand
This That's
so
what
the one
I was waiting I was more expecting, like, that to be the tie-in than
Yeah,
what
no, but
what it
but I
is
I had to I
weirdly
had to
enough.
give that if you didn't know that, I had to give that in. So, the one hand is basically this detective who is a almost retired police officer who's been solving this mystery for basically his whole career. He solved this mystery of, the one-hand killer, like, he found this print, and he thought he solved thought he solved the mystery of, like, "Oh, man, I caught this." It was his big case, his big breakthrough, and then years later, there was a copycat killer. And while this copycat killer existed, the original killer was still in jail. And it turns out, like, no, it was the original killer, or it was just a copycat killer, or whatever the scenario is. They tried to like play it off as like he was just a copycat killer.
Mhm.
Well, now there's a third person doing the same thing, and both of those two original people are dead and gone. And they're like, did we actually catch none of these people? Were both of these first two people wrong? Is there a
Mm.
third person? Like, what's happening? But they find this picture at the end of the book, spoiler alert, where it looks like there's the imprint of a sixth finger coming off of the hand on the wall, where this killer left no details, like, he left everything was exactly how he wanted, the perfect murderer, the perfect killer, the perfect villain, and now this retired detective who they threw, like, this whole retirement party for, he's like, goes to the chief of police. I feel like he was like Danny Glover in Lethal Weapon, like, "I'm too old for this shit."
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
he's ready to just, like, retire. He's like, "But I can't let this out on me." And it was just kind of like, that's yeah. So
That will say is, like, the only bit in this that seems kind of cliche because I do like how it starts, he's, like, sitting in this, like, a therapist's office, and he's like, "Listen, I'm not gonna go off the hinges." Essentially, that's what he's saying to her, and, like, that's really interesting because it seems, like, even very, like, melodic and, like, intentional there of just, like, he knows what he's doing, and whether or not he's trying to cover up any of his actions, that's TBD. But, um, when yeah, like like, the cliche thing is just the fact that he's like, it was literally his retirement party, and then he's like, "Wait, no, this case is coming back." But besides that, I think it's just a very cool original idea of this guy who's trying to find someone who they're like, "We thought this was dealt with," you know?
yeah.
And it keeps reoccurring its ugly head. I am also interested in, like, the killer leaves, like,
Oh,
hieroglyphics.
we also didn't sorry, we didn't mention that it takes place in the future.
I didn't know that it took place in the oh, yeah, I guess you're
Yeah,
right, it does.
because it takes
Because
place in the 20th century or something like that.
yeah,
Yet they still
um,
have flying cars and regular cell phones. Oh, they had flip phones. It was like back to
yeah,
flip phones in, like,
I think
28.
that's probably what threw me off, but then he goes to, like, a brothel, and it's like a future brothel.
Yes, right, right, he has the AI brothel.
Yeah, and I'm just and that scene, like, he's, like, talking with this, lady who, like, you don't know until later she's like, a sex robot, but, her, like, eye starts twitching, and I'm just like, "Oh, no, the killer, like, poisoned her," or something like that, and then I was like, "Oh, wait, no, it's just a weird robot." But, there could have been some sort of connection there, but, yeah, so to go back to I was talking about the, like, hieroglyphics that the person writes, and then he, like, puts his hand, and that's where they see, like you were saying, like, the mark of the sixth finger, and I'm just very curious to, like, what's that person writing? Like, the fact that, like you said, like, this guy is, like, very intentional and, like, knows what he's doing in his crime scene, the fact that he writes, like, this hieroglyphic
But
poem.
they said in the past ones, it was always just a hand at the end, and
Oh, okay.
this one had a little bit of an extra part of the
Oh,
hand.
right. Right.
That
Yeah, and
that
that's
that that was what it was. He's like, "Wait a second, he left something else that he never left before."
right, which would make me go like, "Oh, then this is a copycat," or just the original guy getting sloppy.
Could you imagine if this was really the detective trying to not retire?
Mm,
Like, if both of these stories are told from, like, a split personality where the detective is the killer and he's just doing this so that he doesn't become unwanted.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I
I
could
just think
definitely
that
see
that would be a
something like
crazy
that.
twist. It was like a Brad Pitt Fight Club kind of thing. Like this is like Blade Runner meets Fight Club.
Yeah, that's a good one. Um, yeah, I don't know. It was nice to like kind of get something different from Rom V because I'm mostly used to reading like Rare Flavors or Lila
Yep.
Star, which is kind of has its own tone and vibe from the artist that he's working with. I will say I enjoy the art in this a lot from
Mhm. I agree
Lucas,
1,000%.
but it is very indicative of Mike Dodado Jr. It
Yes,
fe- it like in
and
a good
you
way,
talked
but it
about that. Yes, yes, you did. He does that like very fourth man.
mhm. We're back to talking about it.
Right.
Just very, like, very heavy, um, like, how do you say this? Like, the background is always lighter and the thing that should be, like, the center of the panel is,
It's
like
literally
it
like if you so Blade Runner, Do Androids Dream and Electric Sheep is one of my favorite books.
mm,
If you've never read it, you should go read it if you
I
have read it.
haven't, but I will
Yeah, because
eventually.
it's basically it's the book that Blade Runner was based off of by Philip K. Dick. Philip K. Dick books are the most amazing books ever. Ubik is my favorite book ever.
Okay, I've never
Um,
even heard of that.
exactly. You gotta go read Ubik. It's the craziest book. UBIK. Anybody out there who wants to read an amazing book, it's ridiculously written, and in the let's just say Philip K. Dick is not a grammatically correct writer. He doesn't write uh, like Neil Gaiman or John Grisham. He writes in his own way. Anyway, Blade Runner, like this is all I got reading this book was these Blade Runner vibes, but it
Mm,
also felt like very psychological. Where could it be that the killer is a psychopath and
mhm,
not necessarily like a robot? Like thinking like
mm.
because I'm thinking of this as like, who's a robot in this world? Like this is the 2800s. They're dealing with AI. They're dealing with robots. They're dealing with all this crazy stuff going on. Is this going to be like a more robotic killer, or is this going to be that somebody has, just mentally lost it?
Or even, like, put their, like, a serial killer has, um put his brain into AIs, made a computer copy of it, or and has had, like,
Yes,
X
maybe the
amount of
killer, the
years.
original killer, is like right. It's like a robot.
Right. Yeah, or, like, he programmed some, who knows? But, yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes because
Yep.
I love a good detective story, and speaking of another detective story that we both got into, Pine and Merrimac, number
Yes.
2.
Except I got a different cover than you.
Oh, let's see it. I'm a big fan of this cover. Oh, that one's pretty good too.
When I did my pull box, I picked this because it was just that ooh, if I can get my finger to go the right way, the slit where it's just like they're holding each other in like this like with just a little bit of light coming through.
I will
Planet Mary
say,
Mac is cool.
yeah, I said this when I reviewed the first issue, but I feel like Kyle Stark loves love, and I
Mhm.
love like that he just portrays like good, healthy relationships.
Yep.
Like I don't worry about like the main characters like fighting. Like I don't feel like that's gonna be what this comes down to, and maybe it will, and that's fine. I feel like it'll be well written. But for those of you who don't remember, it's this couple like PI group where the man is an ex-boxer and the woman used to be a detective, but she got tired of kind of always just solving murders and missing people cases because her sister was missing and found dead. I believe she was found. I can't remember if she was
I don't remember if she was found. I think it was one of those like unsolved. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought it was like an unsolved murder, and it
yeah,
was
you
just
could
like
be
she was
right.
told she was told to like let it go, and then she became because she was told to let it go when she was a kid, and that's why she became a detective. She became a detective because after nobody could solve her sister's murder, and then so she started on this
Mm,
case that they're on because the picture of the girl in this murder or this disappearance looked like her sister because she was basically doing like these, you know, divorce cases where they take pictures of infidelity and stuff like
mhm,
that. And if you remember at the beginning, she almost gets poisoned with coffee in this issue.
right. Yeah. Yeah,
We
and
can't have coffee at that place anymore.
I will say that the tone of this is very interesting because it is kind of like light and jovial while also dealing with like missing people, murder, and sex trafficking, you know?
Yes.
So,
Oh,
like,
wait, no, no, and don't forget all the, crazy stuff that happens at the end when with all that, like, I don't know,
right,
crazy
like a
stuff.
cult
Yes,
essentially,
right.
right, and, like, so it's a I don't wanna say the tone's weird, but maybe I'm just a little prudish and just being like, "Wow, you guys are kinda talking about, like, some really heavy stuff and then making, like, witty, like, MCU type humor at each other of just kind of, like, quipping." But it's fun and it's good, but again, like, the world is so heavy and dark, and then they're just having, like, a fun time in it, you know?
All I think about is that it's Kyle Starks, and I have to just imagine he wrote "I Hate This Place," and he wrote
Mhm.
"Unleashed," and "Unleashed" was about pets in the Marvel Universe that fight a hell demon, and "I Hate This Place" is about fighting demons in the woods with a lesbian couple who's trying to protect a farm.
Right.
So, I'm kinda thinking, like, Kyle Starks has his own thing, and when I met him at New York Comic Con, he was a really nice guy, and was just like, "Okay, I'll read what you write.
Yeah.
I'll understand that you know what you're doing."
Yeah, I mean, it's all very good. I know that might sound like I'm just laying into it a little
Oh,
bit,
no,
but
I know you love his stuff. Over
mhm.
the past few years, everything that he's done, I feel like you really end up loving and reading.
Yeah, I mean, I really loved I Hate This Place, and this is like this again is like I feel like this will be one of those comics that like, oh, when I see like issue number 3 pop up, I'll be like, "Oh, this is nice. This is fun. Like, let's just keep on rolling." You know? It won't like maybe it would again, like I'm never opposed to anything becoming one of my favorite comics because I always just want good comics, you know? But I just see this as just kind of that nice like I'm
Isn't that
looking
what
forward to
happened,
this.
though, with, I Hate This Place?
Yeah, I mean, I Hate This Place ended up at like
As one of
on
your
my
favorite books. Like, right. I feel
I
like
will
that's
s
just it's
it
one of
w
those things. Sorry, it happened with me where I started reading it just thinking it was good, and then I
mm.
just kept reading it, and I just liked it.
Yeah, and I think that's what it came down to for me was that it might not have, like, been the best comic insofar as, like, how it was written, like, the art, all those things were very good, but I can think of, like, other comics that I get more excited about, but that, again, was just, like, a good like, it was just a good sustainable meal in the, like, comic book sense of just being like, this hits all the check marks, you
Yeah.
know, of, like, what makes a good comic.
Mhm.
And I do feel that way about this so far of just like the art is good, the story is very compelling, and it's very fast moving, you know? Like
Oh, yeah. No,
it
that's the
seems like
worst when it
they're
doesn't go
already
anywhere.
like like if this was another comic with like a less skilled writer, this would be issue number 4, not issue number 2, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's I'm trying to think if I have anything else I want to say. What any how are you feeling about it?
I'm really enjoying it. I like I said, the beginning when she walks when it starts out with her in this issue in the coffee shop, and she finds out, like, she's like, "Ugh, my coffee." She's like, "You finally gave it to me." She's like, "Well, now I have to get a job because my millionaire husband divorced me." It's like,
Right.
"Yeah, well, then don't go sleeping around, crazy
Right.
lady."
Right.
And I'm like, I like that it was very real at that point,
Mhm.
and then later on, they're dealing with the occult, where it's like calling up demons, and they're like, we gotta get out of here. We're on this crazy island." And
Yeah.
they try to escape, and they had to light that fire on the dock,
Mhm.
and they're just like, and the guy's like, "Get on board, get back on my ship. We gotta get you out of here." And they're like now trying to solve this next mystery. I like, you know what it reminds me? Jed MacKay is one of my favorite writers,
Mm.
and he always leaves you every issue. He leaves you with a little bit of funny, a little bit of drama, but the end always has suspense to the point where you want to know what happens next. So
Mhm.
when I go back to read it again, and you talked about this many episodes ago, where you wish that some of these books gave you a synopsis at the beginning of what
Mhm.
happened previously. And I feel
Mhm.
like a lot of Kyle Starks and Jed MacKay books, they start the book off where they left off with a little bit of backstory, not always like a written backstory where you're kind of like you're not just thrown in and then you have to
Mhm.
read 4 or 5 pages to figure it out. And that helps with liking the book as a whole. And I'm excited. I really want to see where it goes. I like the story. I like the guy that the fact that the guy's like a boxer and he's really protective of her, but she's like super like intuitive and really wanting to be this detective, and he's like, "You go for it, babe.
Yeah.
You be the detective. I'll punch that guy in the face for you."
Yeah, I'll gladly do it again and time again.
So
Um, yeah, so okay, so this next one that we're gonna get into isn't a detective story, but it kind of feels like it is
oh,
because
it's so a detective story. It's so a detective story.
what we're talking about is Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees.
Oh, man.
And
Super it's Dexter meets, like, Sherlock Holmes.
yeah, okay. Yeah, or yeah, just and again, or just like the Bernstein Bears of just like this like fun little safe world that they live in. And I feel like this issue um does a really good job at giving like the personalities or like fleshing out the characters of the town a little bit more than it
Yeah.
did in like other issues. Whereas in other issues, and again, for those of you who don't know, this is like such an interesting and cool original unique comic because it's set in this like how would you say this like a child's play or a child's like storybook universe. Like all the art looks very much just like those
Can we
old.
just, like, stop and say how awesome Patrick Horvath is?
Yeah,
Because,
I mean,
I mean, Tyler Crook wrote and and drew the whole Lonesome Hunters book, and
mhm,
I'm envious of that, and Jeff Lemire does a lot of his own, like, story and art stuff. When people do their own story and art, it should be looked at as, "Wow, I can't believe this person is doing both the story and the art." I know that some artists just they can do both,
mhm,
but they don't always, like, I see Scotty Young a lot of times, he'll do either the art or he'll do the writing. But in this case, Patrick Horvath, he does both the art and the story,
mhm.
and they're both amazing. This is not like, "Oh, man, you're sacrificing art for the story or you're sacrificing story for the art." It's amazing. So, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll let you keep going, but I just wanna, like, give a shout out to him because he does an amazing job doing both, which is really, really tough a lot of times in these situations.
And I will say, I wonder how long he's had this story in mind because of how, like, in how, like, I feel like this art is so telling of that kind of world, and anyone who looks at it and is familiar with like these just childhood books, are instantly kind of sucked back into that, and that helps this kind of like jarring juxtaposition of serial killers in this world, of just the fact that there's again going back to how this is kind of a detective story is you have this bear who is a serial killer, but she goes off to the city and just kind of picks people at random and then like meticulously discards of their body. Whereas here in their small town, now there's somebody murdering people who are just, wants the attention, wants people to know that they're out there and wants people to be living in fear. Um, yeah, and yeah, like I said, this issue does such a good job of really fleshing out the community and just showing, how they're all just living in fear and like and it really did make me think about like if I don't know, I live in a bigger town than this, but not that much bigger, and, like, if we started having, like, people getting murdered, it, like, in a gruesome way like this, like, how that would affect my community.
Forgetting even getting murdered. I mean, we in my town is I mean, I live on Long Island, so there's a huge population on Long Island, but the town that
Mhm.
I live in is small compared to most towns.
Sure.
And when, a car gets broken into, like, on your street, like,
Mhm.
everybody's looking out, like, "Oh my god, is my car gonna get broken into? Is someone here?" Like, forgetting just murder, like, the small things end up becoming those things that you're just now everybody's like paranoid, like lock your doors, put up cameras, do this stuff. And in this instance, the fact that everyone in the town is doing this, but the main character is, like I said, Sherlock Holmes esque, trying to solve this murder mystery by figuring out what are the clues that they know. And was it lavender? Was it lavender was the clue?
Yes, I think it was
Like
something like
like
that.
the murderer was allergic to lavender?
Yeah.
Something like that, and it's like, so, you know, the main character was following, this one character in the whole story, trying to figure out, like, oh man, it's got to be her. Her husband died. What's going on? Who's she talking to? She breaks into her house.
Mm,
And then I don't want to spoil the end of this for anyone who really does want to read this because it's so good. But then at the very end, when you hear the sneeze and she looks over and he looks over at her, and it
mhm.
was just like, "To be continued," and you're like, "Oh!"
Yeah, this comic does such a good job of just ending with that place of, like,
But the
it
storytelling throughout too is so
mhm,
amazing.
mhm.
The last
That's
the la Yeah, sorry, you go.
no, I was gonna say that's what I was
Yeah,
gonna say, is just it does such a good job of delivering a single issue, like, being like, "Here's a story for you in here," but it is part of the bigger story, and something that I really liked about this issue was the fact that it wasn't just about the serial killer, but she went off on this side quest, broke into somebody's house, and it didn't really lead to where she wanted to go. But it is another kind of look into like the gross, I wouldn't say gross, or just the realness or the very, muck of being a personness of this society, and it's not just like this fun little neighborhood on the outside, but people, just normal people, do have their stuff,
yeah,
their gunk, their crap that they live with. And yeah, again, you could just look like a little fun cartoon mouse, but you have just trauma back at home.
yeah. You know what's funny is I don't remember where I heard it, but somebody was talking about the fact that they think that maybe this town is actually people, but they don't see themselves as people, they see themselves as the animals they're depicted as.
Interesting. Well,
So
yeah,
it's
I'm
like, these individual animals, like, if you remember the issue 2 with the lady who was like, "Get me my coffee."
mhm,
And she's just pushing through things, but, like, what animal are you depicted as? Like, that's what everyone from the outside sees this town as. They see them as the animal that they really are versus that they're actually animals versus an anthropomorphic, like, kind of life.
right. Yeah.
Just interesting. Always These are always interesting
eh,
philosophical things.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it was something like that. I'm just so I feel like the twist on I feel like we're gonna figure out who it is and it's gonna be resolved, but I feel like there's something else that's gonna pop up that I don't know why I feel that, other than like I don't feel like it would just be satisfying enough for this person to be like, okay, here's the serial killer. I've figured out the crime. I feel like something else is gonna happen on top of it. And again, I don't know why, but I feel like this is gonna take us on a nice little like detour into something else. And
I hope so.
yeah.
I,
And
sorry, I wanna give
no,
you a
go ahead.
complete side point for, like, 30 seconds, which is I finished
The
reading the
floor is all
book.
yours.
Thanks. I finished reading the book Sirens of the City, and that's one of my biggest pet peeves. I really enjoyed that book as a whole from the 1st issue to the 5th issue or 6th issue, whatever it was,
Mm,
but the last issue, I did not like the way it ended. Like, plain and simple. Like, and the problem was is that it's not a matter of that they ended it how they wanted it to. Like, they wrote it in the way that they wanted it to end, but I didn't love it, and I thought it ended in a, not as good a way as I would have wanted, and I was talking to my guy James at my local comic shop, and he basically agreed with me that it shouldn't have ended that way. So, my biggest fear is that this book, Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, ends in a way that, like, I don't want it to end because it's been
mm.
so good and I love so much of it. And there's been so many good books out there that have just ended in kind of like a "mwah, mwah,
Yeah,
mwah."
kind of a wet thud.
Right, and then it kind of like you look back and you're like, "How good was that book?" Because it didn't end the way you wanted, and that's why, again, to circle back to the beginning of this whole podcast, The Fourth Man was so good because it ended with 2 people staring at each other with guns. How is this gonna end?
Mhm. Yeah.
That was
Yeah,
it.
and and again, like, even in that moment, the ending doesn't need to necessarily pay off and show you how it's going to
No,
end,
it doesn't. It just needs to show you, like, this is where it got to. Like, that's why
right?
I wouldn't even care, like, the way that Patrick Horvath is writing, beneath the trees, if it ends with it's like if it ends with nobody figuring out that she's been murdering these people in the city, but she solved the murder in her town, and she's like, and everything went back to normal. And then they showed her murdering somebody, and then it just ended.
Mhm.
Like, I'd be okay with that because it's
Right.
back to normal for that town and the city, even though nobody ever caught her, because it's one of those like that's the loop.
Yeah. I even like, and again, I'd rather go that way than be like, "Oh, she realizes that she doesn't wanna be a killer anymore," you know? Because
Right,
it's just like,
100%.
no, she seems like she's a psychopath, you know? Like,
Right.
she's like, "I'm trying to get to the bottom of this. I'm breaking into homes so that I can continue to murder in peace," you know?
Yes, exactly.
So, I think
MIP.
and again, that's such an interesting take of, like, and a good like, a true anti-hero when you're, like, rooting for the person that you shouldn't be rooting
Yeah,
for, you know? Not
100%.
just, like, they made the Joker cool now or whatever it is, you know?
Right.
Um, yeah. So, that was all the things that we had, like, really planned on talking about, but are there any other comics that you wanna shout out now that we're getting close
I
to
would
wrapping
like
the
to
bad boy up?
well, I'd say, nothing crazy, but, I love the Space Between, Boom Studios put that out. It was a great book, 4-issue arc.
Oh,
It e
oh,
it
4
en
issues.
it
So
ended
I read the 1st issue and really liked it, and that's the one that jumps decades, right?
it jumps decades, and then it ends, I didn't love the last page of the ending of it. It kinda reminded me of, like, the way I didn't love the way 8 Billion Genies ended at the very, very end, like, where I would have done something differently, but again, I'm not a comic writer, so, like, what are you
Right.
gonna do? Where am I getting put in this situation? Like,
Yeah.
I can't write. I can tell you what I would do, but that doesn't mean I would have written it any differently. And then Once Upon a Time at the End of the World, I know a lot of my buddies, pals, friends have left it. Man, it's like an emotional roller coaster to the end. It's up to issue 12. It's gonna go to issue 15. I cannot wait to see where it goes. Issue 7, I think, was the one where me and Kyle over at the Comic Book Lair were talking about how it got a little crazy with the sex stuff, but
Mhm.
it's gone up and down. It's roller coaster heaven. It has the highs and the lows, but man, Jason Aaron knows how to write, which makes me wanna jump on the I think he's gonna be doing the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or something like that. It
Mhm.
makes me really wanna read what he's gonna do because I think in trade, anybody who wants, like, a story, go will pick this up when all 15 come out. And I think, my Marvel stuff has been pretty good. Fantastic Four's been pretty good. X-Men's been pretty good. Avengers has been amazing. Avengers Twilight, if you wanna pick up any cool new Avengers thing, I would say Avengers Twilight, go pick that up. It's only 2 issues in. And, yeah, that's about all I'm at right now.
Nice. I will say I was looking at my I spend most of my time at my comic shop looking at the indie walls, and then there's a Marvel wall that's right next to it, and I'll look at like just kind of glance over that, and then there's a DC wall next to it that I just never look at. Is kind of how my brain works. But I was looking at the Marvel wall and I was like, man, I'm kind of bummed that like because it's not just like it's practicality reasons as well as a lot of the reasons I don't get into that stuff is just because I can only afford X amount of comics. I know I can only read X amount of comics a week. And there's just so much there, and it's just and yeah, like, looking over it, I'm like, "Man, I do kind of want to know what this stuff is about," but again, that's why I love the Marvel Unagi over at the Comic Book Lair, where I get to hear you and Kyle talk about all the stuff that's going on, and it's nice to kinda get filled in. I really wish I was on the Fantastic Four. Every time you guys talk about the
Oh,
Fantastic
I
Four.
just read issue 17, and it was so good. They discover like, it doesn't matter, this is a single standalone issue. They
Mhm,
discover fossils that look like they're 15 million years old, and they shouldn't be there because there shouldn't be human remains when the
mm,
humans weren't in that part of the world,
right.
and it turns out that it was Sue Storm's fossils.
Oh,
So they have to use their time travel machine to travel back, similar to, like, the way Kang travels through time, to
yeah.
figure out how she died 15 million years ago.
That's super interesting. I
Right, like,
wonder if she'll die in that time period and be like, "Oh,
well,
no, I brought my
and
bones there."
that's the funny thing, it's like, this whole series by Ryan North has been amazing because every issue is kind of it's very fresh. It's my favorite Marvel single run. X-Men is my favorite series, but X-Men has been so many spin-offs, but
Mm.
the Fantastic Four, is just if you get Marvel Unlimited and you get the chance and you wanna read it, or if you wanna listen to me and Kyle over at, Marvel Unagi, the comic book lair, you can listen to me rant and rave and talk about all other nonsense over there.
I'll make sure I have that linked in the description below, so that yeah, so that everybody can check that out. The last thing that I want to talk about, I picked this up 2 weeks ago, I believe. Dark Spaces Dungeons number 3, um, and this definitely fits into like the rest of the stuff that we've been talking about this week of like dark detective story. And this is just about there's this psychopath who has dungeons all across America and keeps people in them and like tortures them psychologically, like physically, he distorts them. And one of the people who there's only been like one or two people that have ever escaped, and one of them is currently a detective trying to find the guy. And somebody was out jogging and they uncovered one of the dungeons, which has been impossible to find any because they get abducted and just taken there and then they die there because so few people have escaped, and the people who do escape like are delusional and they escape at night, and so they get lost in the woods and they don't know how to get back to where they were. So yeah, it's written by Scott Snyder and the art is by Hayden Sherman. So they're just like one of my favorite teams when they come together. I mean, they did Dark Spaces Wildfires, which was such a fun, interesting, unique book. Um, yeah. So I don't know. This was just continues to be good. It's like it deals with like a lot of the same issues as like Pine and Merrimac, but it is the heaviness that you would think that that world would feel. You know what I mean?
That's pretty awesome. I actually haven't read any of that stuff.
Yeah. So, this is I haven't been pleased with, like, a lot of the other Dark Spaces, stuff that's been coming out, the Hollywood Special, and I forget what the other one is called. But, yeah, Dark Spaces Wildfire and Dark Spaces Dungeon, those are both by Scott Snyder and Hayden Sherman, and I love Hayden Sherman. Their art is one of the best in the business, in my humble opinion. He's gotten a lot more clean. He looks a lot more like his art looks a lot more like, John Romita Jr.'s, just in kind of the way that, like, the faces are very round, um, and, like, just I don't know. His art is just their art has just gotten a lot cleaner, and I do
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of
That looks like all the art that you see though now. I think that that's really nice though. I when
Mhm.
it's a little bit cleaner.
Yeah, I will say I like dirty art from time to time, or just, like, sketchier art, and I feel like
Dirty art.
well, because 'cause I'm thinking about, like, this compared to, like, Chicken Devil, you know?
Or even
Chick
like Jeff Lemire. Jeff Lemire's art is like
um,
scratchier art.
yeah,
But I love Lemire.
the scratchiest.
The
Um,
scratchiest.
well, I don't know, I'm trying to think of somebody who would have, like, more spazzy art, but I can't think of that at the moment. But yeah, that comic I've just been super enjoying. Another one that I read up some time back, Slow Burn. This is just continues to be really good, continues to be really weird, and this is something that I'll definitely be getting in trade paperback because every issue is from a different character's perspective, and so it's kind of hard to follow like the main story, especially because there's decent sized gaps in between each issue. And then because it's being told from a different person's perspective and like not necessarily picking up chronologically, it is kind of a little like confusing. But overall, I'm enjoying it. I'm it's a nice like artistic piece. It kind of feels like it's a little bit above kind of your normal comic book, like how it tells stories, but this is kind of transcended into that like artsier realm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Alrighty. Well, I think that'll do us for this week. Ross, thank you so much for coming on and having this little chit chat with us. Why
Dude, I'm
don't you
happy to be here.
yeah, I well, literally, like, I messaged you probably 6 hours ago and asked if you could do this, so, if I know somebody's reading comics, it's, you. So,
I
I
literally read like 5 books today before you even messaged me.
I will admit that I read a lot. not all of the ones that I talked about, but I did read a bunch before coming on here in between when I texted you initially and now because I wanted to be like, all right, I got to have stuff to talk about. Normally I have 3 more days before I have to, and Sunday mornings are my comic book day. That's when I like sit down with my,
Oh, yeah, no, tomorrow morning, man, I'm going out. My birthday was this past week, so
oh, happy
we're
birthday.
thanks, man. We're going to a distillery,
Oh,
and
I knew that.
we rented some igloos, and we're
You're
gonna have a
renting an
whole
igloo?
there's like they have those outdoor igloos, and this Better Man Distillery.
Okay.
They have these like outdoor igloos that are themed. So like they have like a football one, and then they have like a disco one, and then they have these different things. So
That's
we rented a
interesting.
bunch of those, and yeah, and, like the kids will come, and we'll have some drinks and food, and there'll be food trucks, and it'll be a lot of fun.
That
So that's
sounds
my
like a lot of
Sunday.
fun.
Yeah.
Where can people find you?
Yeah, if you guys want to follow me, I am at Red Optical Corp on Instagram. That's basically where you'll find me. My friend who is Take Me to the Riot, he actually started a Facebook group for Beneath the Trees, which
Oh.
he has me as an administrator on. We have 15 people in our group. Man, it's getting crazy.
Oh, well, maybe you'll have to send that to me because 'cause I'll join
um,
that group.
yeah, no, that's about it. I'm on TikTok every once in a while, just posting videos of me talking comics, playing music, and enjoying life because life is awesome. That's about all there is to it.
I like that. That's great. Well, like I said, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you everybody for listening or watching, however you consume this podcast. I appreciate that. Make sure that you give us a like and a subscribe. You know what to do. If you're on the internet, you know how to participate with media on the internet. I think we're at 197 at the
Yes, you
moment
were.
for
I saw that today. That was awesome.
I'm gonna just be honest, and I've said this before that a lot of those I'm pretty sure are bots, but hey, we'll take them. So, because I know that I'm at least subscribed on 2 different emails, but again, nobody's
Hey,
it what does it matter?
I only got 10 subscribers, man.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
you're
yeah, I mean,
187 more than me.
well, what are you gonna do? I'm pretty sure my music page has like 9. So, it swings and roundabouts, man. You gotta do what you gotta do. But we are on all of these social medias: TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, as the Poolbox Pals or just Poolbox Pals. It's all linked in the description below, as well as some stuff for Ross over at the Comic Book Lair and just all the fun stuff that he does with those guys. Yeah. And as we say here at the end of each episode, what do we say, Ross? What's our new one?
I don't remember because I like
Uh,
that I read comics in these years and I can't know the new one.
it's okay. I threw you right under the bus on that one, but it's okay. You know why? Because you can embrace your inner comic. I feel bad throwing you under the bus like that.
Oh,
Why don't
it's
you
okay,
say
dude.
the old catchphrase to end it?
Oh, I don't care. That was great, actually. I thought that was perfect.
All right, well then we'll just end on that one. Good night, everybody.